Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran jazz bassist Jeff Denson on the 2022 CD Finding Light. On this stellar trio of bassist Jeff Denson, drummer Brian Blade, and guitarist Romain Pilon, they shine. This is the first time for Jeff and Romain to get together to record with drummer Brian Blade. Captured in the studio on the 2019 Ridgeway Records album Between Two Worlds, the trio's debut introduced an uncommon communication that seemed destined for further adventures. Even after 2 years of pandemic angst that hasn't been able to dim their brilliant chemistry together. We get into this album, surviving COVID, and so much more. Enjoy this interview.
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm wonderful. Great to catch up with you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute out. And before we get into Finding Light, I always love your work, and I'm looking forward to getting into this album. But yeah, you bet. And we just went through quite a time with COVID where, things are opening up, especially for artists and musicians. How did you survive that 2-year period, and how did it change you now that we're coming out of it?
Oh, when it first hit, it was completely surreal, and I like probably many people, I didn't think that it was gonna last, and I didn't think it would take that long. And I thought, well, okay, I'm in my house. That's kind of cool in a weird way. Like, I'm gonna practice, and I practiced a lot. I really was like, I was practicing kind of like a maniac. And I was teaching on Zoom. So, I would teach on Zoom, hang up the call, and run back over to my bass, which is, 6-7 feet away from my computer. And I just practiced like crazy. And that went on for about a year. And then when it's like the news just kept getting terrifying, it just didn't seem to be going away. And then I hit a wall. I got pretty depressed, and my whole adult life has been playing my instrument for people, playing in front of an audience, teaching in front of an audience, touring Europe and playing for packed halls and clubs, playing from all size rooms, from coffee shops to theaters, right, and festivals. And this was a year or so of not playing for anyone. It finally really got to me, and I felt pretty discouraged and questioning what am I, what am I if I'm not playing music? And I had a hard time then. It's like my practice routine crumbled, and it's like that. Like I said, the first year I practiced like a maniac, and then all of a sudden I was depressed. And what I did to get myself out of it was I started playing random thing. I picked up my electric bass, and I would play along with random recordings of things I loved from my childhood, all kinds of different music, rock music and reggae and blues and funk, and I have one of these devices. I'm not going to say its name because then it'll start speaking to me in my room, in my studio here, where I would say, hey, play James Brown, and then it would start, and I would say, okay, well, here's a game, it would start the music, and I would try to learn it as fast as humanly possible. I would just try to immediately play and learn the parts. And that became something that I really enjoyed doing. And then I would jump on Zoom and teach my students and try to be inspiring and cheerful for them. And then, hang up the call, and then I would go, okay, now play Bob Marley, or play, Eric Clapton, or then to play Horace Silver. It was really kind of a wild, eclectic thing, but I was just trying to connect to something pure, the pure joy of playing music, and playing along with things that I heard as a child that I never learned to play, but I just I'd heard them a bunch of times, and that really helped me get through it. And I had a few of these live streamed concerts where I'm playing with somebody in an empty room. But I did some great ones. Like I had a duo concert with Edward Simon, who's an incredible pianist, and we decided to do a tribute to the music of Wayne Shorter, and we chose some of our favorite Wayne tunes and played. And I did another show with a good friend of mine, Paul Hansen, who's an extraordinary jazz bassoonist. And we played in this big theater. It was in Vallejo, California, the Empress Theater, and it was completely empty. It was a date he had in the books, and then they honored it and kept it. But, you know, they did the whole thing live stream. And I did a solo concert for Mark Dresser's Deep Tones for Peace series, and like those little things. But really, I think, like I said, what saved me was like trying to reconnect to pure joy of playing music, and it was pretty eclectic. I mean, in which honestly that matches my listening taste anyway. So that's what I did.
Talk to me a little bit about this brand new album. Was this something that happened over the pandemic or before, after? How did this album happen?
The last tour I did with the guys before this new album with Roman and Brian was a great tour. We did like from San Diego, LA, Santa Cruz, then we flew to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma City, and then Portland, Oregon, Seattle, and then capped it off in Berkeley on February 11th, 2020. And like, you know, from the time, that was the second tour like that we did, and the music had just kept growing every night we played from the first album, Between Two Worlds. And we were so excited. Okay, it's like, I need to book, you know, let's do the East Coast. So that was supposed to be next. And then literally 1 month later, COVID hit. And so, you know, we're waiting. What are we going to do? And we started talking about, well, let's start thinking about new music. Let's do a new album. Like, you know, we're trapped at home. Let's write some music. So the first piece I wrote for the album is the one on there, A Moment in Time. And that I wrote kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. And so that's really capturing that feeling that I was talking about before, like it got really dark, like when it was like, this is really bizarre and surreal. And I'm standing at home in my home studio looking out the window and like practicing. So, and then I'd go, you know, at the end of the night, I'd go downstairs and turn on the news and be like, what the hell is going on? You know, what are they talking about? And so that piece really captures this surreal feeling of like, not, you know, confusion and maybe disbelief, but also thinking that there's light at the end of the tunnel and then this will definitely pass. That's what that piece is all about. And then something interesting, you know, Roman and I, just like the last album, we split up the writing duties, and we got started writing, and then we called each other and said, okay, you know, what are you writing? What are you doing? And I told him, well, I'm writing this different music. I start describing the tunes, and then I tell him about this. I think it's which track is it? Maybe the second track on the album. It's the title track, Finding Light. And I tell him about the tune. Well, it turns out that we were both writing music with the same thing in mind without ever talking to each other about it. And that was like, we were trying to write kind of joyous music, you know, write something that was positive and we find happiness in a dark time. You know, we're looking to like look out of the tunnel and find light. And that's why that title is that, Finding Light. It's really just kind of find that joy that we have when we play together and find it in the music. Also funny, I wrote a tune on there called Daily Jubilee of Dancing Herbie D. And that's dedicated to my dog. He's like, you know, he's like my best friend, and he's a funny little guy. And so I wrote this tune for him. Well, funny enough, it turns out that Roman at the same time wrote a song for his dog too, and that's Cookie. So it's called This Way Cookie. And he said that he titled it that because every time he takes his dog outside to go for a walk, it's like it never wants to go the direction he wants to go. It's like, and it always like forces its own agenda. So the dog walks Roman is really what that song is about.
That's awesome. So, with all this woe and everything that you went through and we all collectively went through with COVID, it has to feel real good now to have an album out, to see the other side of this, live shows. What is this overall feeling like for you?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's great. It was, I mean, even, so, after we started writing the music, we started planning recording dates, and then we planned the first recording date, and then COVID kept going, and we had to cancel the session. And I talked to Brian. He's like, "Oh man, okay, well, let's see, let's see when we can try it again." I'm like, okay, I schedule another date, and then sure enough, COVID keeps going, and they started another lockdown, and like, okay. So it took 3 times. The third time was the charm. We were finally able to get back, and that was January of this year. And what was exciting, or we were really happy to find out, it's like right when we started playing, it's like all the magic was there still, it's like that 2 years of pandemic, and being trapped in our houses and not performing. It didn't dull any of our chemistry. And we played these tunes, and they felt great, and it felt joyous. And so that's the first part of the thing. It's like to feel that joy again was amazing. And now that things have opened up, I mean, I had an extraordinary year, honestly. Like, I played with so many amazing musicians. I played concerts with Joe Lovano, Chris Potter, Rachel Z and Omar Hakim, Billy Childs and Kendrick Scott. Who am I forgetting? I mean, just amazing concerts. I just got home. It was like 4 days ago or something from the first CD release tour with Roman. We were in 4 countries. We're in I was in 4 countries: Finland, Spain, Belgium, and France. And it was with Roman, with that music, it was the last 3: Spain, Belgium, France. And the Finland dates were with my other trio where I sing and play. But, wow. It's like, it's wonderful to like remember, like, oh, this is what I am. This is what I do. I travel and I perform and work with these like amazing musicians. Like, this is what it's all about. This is what I've always spent my whole life working towards. So it's great to be back at that again. It doesn't get better than that. So I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the audience feel like? Obviously there was a big time there was a long time where, the fans couldn't go out. Does it feel different? What does it feel like for you?
Man, honestly, like in this tour I just got back from, it felt like the old days. It didn't really feel different to me. Like, it didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm in this pandemic world, or like post-pandemic world. It didn't really feel like any of that. Like, the concerts felt thrilling, and the audiences were warm, and I chatted with people after the shows, and it's surprising. It did feel pretty normal, and I think it probably even felt more normal than it does at home in the Bay Area. Like, in the Bay, like most of the time, the audiences are fully masked, and I don't dislike that. I like being cautious. Like, I'm happy about that. But in Europe, it's kind of like, wow, it's normal. It feels like normal life. So I don't know if I'm rambling on too much, but
no.
It felt like, it felt normal.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. I know on my end of things here in Kansas City, things are picking up, and it really feels good. I'm curious, let's get to the good business here. Where's the best place for everybody to pick up Finding Light, stream it, learn more about you, what you're obviously touring with so many people and doing so many things. 2022 is closing, but 2023 is on the horizon. Give me kind of a portal into the way everybody can either get the album or find out about your itinerary.
Well, the best way to find out about what I'm up to is check my website. That's my name, jeffdenson.com, and my social media pages, which are both Facebook and Instagram, Jeff Denson Music. It'd be great to follow me on Instagram. I'm always keeping up with that, putting my dates and tour dates and photos from the tours on those sites. Yeah, so those are the ways to keep up with me.
Cool. Jeff, man, it's always great to catch up with you. You always have so many amazing things going on, and it's great that I know from my end to be able to talk to musicians that are actually out doing things and out of the house and living lives. So thank you for opening up about that and taking some time out today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in L.A., New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all about jazz. Thanks to Jeff. He's a regular on the show, a good friend, for his time, music, and honesty. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, visit the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.